Hello everybody, it's Jen, Scrapbena Creations. Welcome back to another design team project for the Not Too Shabby shop. All the information for the shop will be listed below, and don't forget to use coupon code JEN10 to save 10%. So here's the card that I'm making today. It's a underwater scene using the Lawn Fawn Sublime stamp set, as well as Mermaid for You and the Duh-Nuh stamp set. I'm also using the Honeybee Stamps Ocean Builder Scene Stencils. So to make the ocean background, I'm doing a little bit of sand at the bottom. I'm using my Vintage Photo and Antique Linen. So these are my two favorite brown combinations for sand. I skipped ahead. I've already gone and done my first layer for the ocean. I'm using Tumbled Glass and Salty Ocean, so I did a full coverage of the Tumbled Glass, then adding Salty Ocean to the top, and then blending them together. I wasn't worried about having a perfectly smooth blend. I am also using some of the Tumbled Glass over the sand portion because if you were looking at it, underwater scene, the water would also be covering the sand. So I used my distress sprayer there to add some distressing with water, and then I just used my heat tool to dry that quickly. Now I'm going to do the rays of light coming through the water using the Ocean Scene Builders, and I'm using my Hero Arts Unicorn White ink for that. For the tinier little rays, I'm using the Salty Ocean. I was a little too heavy-handed right there at the bottom, so I am going back over with the white, and then to kind of blend that out, I took the stencils off and I went back over with the Unicorn White ink to try to blend that out a bit more. So I'm also putting the little water highlight on the top, and I decided that I was going to do this across the top panel. So I started out in the center, and then I moved to the left hand side, and then I'll move to the right hand side as well. I just thought that this would give it a little bit more interest throughout the top of the card. So I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz Distress Glaze, and I'm just using a laminated sheet here. It's just regular cardstock, but I find that you want something underneath this when you're using the glaze. So I have a special sponge that I use only for the glaze, and I'm just going to use my distress tool here to make sure I get that on. It was a bit slippery, so I just grabbed a piece of paper there just to keep my fingers out of it. So the instructions say to go over that with a paper towel to get any excess off. And so here I decided that I wanted a little bit more interest on my card, so I ended up cutting out a little frame from that panel using my stitched rectangle dies from Lawn Fawn. And I'm just going to keep that little frame piece to the side, and I'll bring that back in when I'm constructing the card. So now I'm going to move on to adding the images and creating the little scene. So I'm going to pop some of these up on 3M foam adhesive, and then some of the little elements I'm going to be adhering right down to the card panel with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I will leave all the links to the products below in case you're interested in anything or learning more specifically about the exact products I used. I'm just trying to balance the bottom of the ocean floor here using a lot of the different seaweed and little sea foliages, and then I'm getting my placement of my little scuba divers on here. So this represents me, and the blue little guy is my hubby, who we both got certified when we actually were early dating a long time ago. So kind of fun and a part of our lives together. So here's where things go awry. So I decide to stamp the sentiment here, and the sentiment reads, "Hope you have a sublime birthday." And I should have known that something was wrong because it took me 4 times to stamp this image, and look, it's smudged. So here's what I learned about stamping on top of the glaze. And so now I'm like, well, I guess the submarine's going on the card. So I'm trying to figure out how I can fix this because I'm already 45 minutes into this card and that's not including the coloring. So I was determined that I was saving this. You see me try to do a bunch of things here, but ultimately the only thing I could do was add more images. However, okay, so back to working with the glaze. So the first time I did the underwater scene with the Pink and Mane narwhals, I heat embossed the sentiment before I put the glaze on, which is definitely what you want to use. I wonder as well, I should do a little bit of a testing if stays on ink would be a better alternative for over top of the glaze, that or leave it dry for a while. I didn't let it dry that long because I was making the video. So the scene started out with a sentiment, but in the end the sentiment will go on the inside, and I'll show you that after I get the rest of the front of the card on. But it's one of those things where when you put so much time into something, I mean, you're totally bummed that it gets ruined, or your original idea isn't going to pan out the way you thought, but don't give up. So now my little card has a submarine on it, which is fine. I am going to move the placement of this shark here in a minute. I just decided that I better get that frame in place. I popped the frame up with some foam adhesive just to give it some dimension. And then you can see here even my little images are kind of moving around. So the foam adhesive is not sticking very well to the glaze either. So I am going to use my glue, which works great. And probably if I had let this dry, the foam adhesive would have been fine as well. But I'm going to go and I'm going to adhere these down. So while I put the rest of the images on the card, I'll just tell you a little story about this card. So this is a birthday card for my hubby, and we were snorkeling in Hanauma Bay in Hawaii for our honeymoon, and I came across an eel, and I was super, super excited, and my husband is afraid of snakes, and it never occurred to me that an eel resembles a snake and that it might freak him out a little. So I was really excited, pointed it to him, and afterwards he told me that that completely freaked him out, which was funny. So I kind of, was the brave one in that situation. And then that's why I put these little heart bubbles, because I was like, he's in love with the fact that I have no fear underwater. We also did some shark diving. Now we were in a cage. Well, I was in a cage because this is another funny story. It was very choppy that day, and the people said they actually had never taken guests out with that choppy of sea. So the boat was really rough. It was my turn. I was like the last one. It was our turn to jump into the cage with the sharks. And so I get in, there's sharks all around me, and I'm waiting, and hubby is not beside me. And so I come back to the surface, and I'm like, where is he? And someone is like, he is just seasick and can't come in. I was like, well, somebody better get in here in this cage with me because I need somebody. So that's why I put the shark on there, because he never got to see the sharks underwater. I was actually the only person that entire trip that was not seasick. So that's the story behind this card. You've seen now, I went ahead and stamped the sentiment on a piece of blue cardstock, and I'm going to put that in the middle, and I did trim that up with my stitched rectangle die as well. And now I'm going to add some white detailing to the images to finish them off. So I'm using some on the scuba gear, where it would be shiny on the masks and the tank. And then I'm going to add some dot detailing to the little critters, especially the eel here, and then the starfish, as well as the fish, and then just some highlights on the seaweed. And I think it gives it a really pretty effect. I'm going to do it on the submarine as well. And then I'm just adding my black glaze pen here. and this just allows the eyes of the critters to pop. So that's my card today. I hope you enjoyed. You got to see how you can fix mistakes, and you got to hear me ramble on about some stories from my life. So thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.